excited to welcome to Politics and Prose tonight Andrew Chow for the release of the book Cryptomania, The Hype, Hope, and Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. Chow is a correspondent for Time who covers tech, culture, and business. He has written 5 Times cover stories, including about the impact of the AI corporate arms race and a recent profile of Vitalik Buterin months before the 2022 crypto crash. He has previously written for the New York Times, Pitchfork, and NBC News, and Cryptomania is his first book. And Chow will be in conversation with Jeff Guo, a co-host and reporter for Planet Money, NPR's award-winning podcast that finds creative, entertaining ways to make sense of the complicated forces that move our economy. Previously, Guo covered economics and policy for the Washington Post, where his work frequently blended reporting and data analysis. So please join me now, welcoming to Politics and Prose, Jeff Guo and Andrew Chow.
How's everyone doing? Before we get started, just to show hands, how many of you here have crypto, own crypto? Okay, it's a good crowd. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted you to know what kind of crowd you're talking to here.
Seems about right. 30% or so. I think it's yeah.
It's great to see you all. Thanks all for coming. We're gonna have a lot of fun today, right? Let's get right into it. A lot of people have been talking about crypto, writing about crypto. Can you tell us a little more about what specific curiosities made you really excited to write this book?
Yeah, so, it's loud. Cryptomania is a pandemic era story. And one of the things that I'm trying to convey is that the craziness that makes up this book is both like very pandemic, but it's also happened many times throughout history. Okay, so let's talk about the pandemic. We were all at home. Most entertainment had shut down. We were trying to figure out different ways to live our lives and entertain ourselves and forge connections and all this stuff. So the shutdown happens in maybe March 2020. I start playing Pokemon again, and then I start playing poker online with my friends, and I start going to virtual concerts in Roblox and Minecraft. Did anybody go to any of that? I would go to these raves inside these video games. They're all just these weird cultural things, and this opening up of oh, maybe life as we knew it isn't like that, and maybe the future is going to be different in the ways that we spend our time. So there were these mind shifts where all these people were just all right, we're in the metaverse now, or which an idea that hasn't really lasted. But just sort of an opening up of how we would spend our time, what was valuable, maybe things inside our computers are more valuable than we thought, experiences inside our computer are more valuable than we thought.
And that's what I think is so unique and valuable about this book, is that the way that you approach this subject, other people have written about it as an economics phenomenon, as a scam phenomenon, but I think you really took a cultural lens to it, right? Like an ethnographic look at what was driving this and what were the things that were feeding it. And I think a theme that I've noticed that I don't think maybe has gotten talked about enough sort of in sort of the broader conversation about crypto is the idealism side to it, right? There's this cynical view of crypto, and then there's this idealistic view of crypto. And I think, I don't know, show of hands, who here is still an idealist about crypto? Who still believes that crypto will take us to
Don't be shy.
Our utopian nirvana? Okay, so 2 out of this self-selected crowd, so maybe it's not a statistically significant result. But I think that what you do so well is to balance both of them. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, right? The idealistic part and the cynical part, and the ways in which they kind of
Yes.
interacted.
So the book really starts with idealism because that's both where I started from and where crypto started from. So crypto was born in the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis. The government bailed out the banks $700 million. Trust in institutions was just cratering, and a lot of people, both from the left and the right, were finding just zero trust in most of the way, like in financial institutions and in the internet, just in our overlords, our capitalist overlords of society, and we're looking for something new. So crypto emerges as this idea that decentralized money, that you can send money anywhere across the world, that there's not going to be an intermediary, that you don't have to trust a Bank of America or an American Express, that you can trustlessly send money without, these like prying middlemen who are both taking cut and controlling the world in bad ways. It was a very intriguing idea to a lot of people around the world, and then so it was like bubbling up in fits and starts.
It was very much like a post-capitalist phenomenon, I would even describe it, right? Where you have all these people, like you said, on the left and the right, people who believe that whatever the system that we have right now is not working. A lot of people who are very, I think, optimistic, maybe like in the end, as you show, maybe a little bit naively optimistic about the kind of future that we can build that is post-capitalism, but also a lot of, like, I think, hyper-capitalists, people who like think that the system that we have now, if you just turn it up to like 12 or 13, then that's the solution. And both of them kind of collided in this world, as you write in your book.
It's
right?
this insane brew of people. It's like the craziest Renaissance fair you've ever been to, of like people who are coming into crypto. So yeah, you have these hard libertarians who just want the government to be out of every conversation, and they flock to crypto. And then like some of the Occupy folks also flock to crypto. One of the people that I talked to a bunch, he's not really in the book, but his name is the blockchain socialist. So there is this wing of people who think that the blockchain can better facilitate these like left-wing ideals. It hasn't really held up so far. But like, yeah, the idea of like co-ops and stuff like that could be facilitated by the blockchain.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Nigerian crypto sort of movement that you profiled? Because that's like a good chunk of this book, and I think it provides a really useful antidote to, I think, a lot of the cynicism that I came into. And I think it's fair cynicism, seeing how chaotic things have been in the past year for crypto. But could you talk a little bit more about that?
So I want to loop back around. So it's the pandemic. Late 2020, do you guys remember an app called Clubhouse? Anyone had downloaded it? It was an audio-only app that was supposed to be like the next big tech app. And because we were all sitting at home, it was just audio-only app that you would just sit on and listen to giant rooms of people talking. So I get on, and there's people talking about like Jordan or LeBron, and there's people talking about movies and like all this stuff. And then there's all these people talking about NFTs. Just room after room after room about NFTs, which I had never heard of before. But I'm on the app, I have nothing to do because it's the pandemic, so I started listening, and there are all these idealists and artists in Clubhouse, rooms of hundreds of people across the world talking about how NFTs are revolutionizing their art, making it easier to get paid, forging these networks across the world, opening, just like talking about it like it's the biggest break in art since, I don't know, since photography or something. And coming from a culture lens, I'm very intrigued by it because there are all these amazing artists who are talking about it. And a lot of them are in Africa. I started listening to these rooms it's called the African NFT community. All these artists who had never been able to display their work or talk to collectors in the West, who were collaborating on things now and were feeling very empowered by the whole movement. the more I started like listening to them, I started learning more about specifically like NFTs and crypto in Africa and the promise there. So crypto doesn't make all that, like most people I would say in America who are buy crypto, they just want the number to go up. They want to buy Bitcoin and they want it to double or triple, and they're looking at it as an investment because like a lot of the structures we have, like financial rails, like banks, and I mean they don't work for a lot of people, but for a lot of people they do. Obviously, like so many banks are really, really predatory, but it's easy enough to get money in and out and transfer money, PayPal, like that stuff, Venmo. It all kind of works for us. A lot of these products they don't work nearly as well in Africa, particularly when you're talking about moving from one country to another. So one of the big promises of crypto was around the idea of remittances, of sending, if you move from one country to another and then you're sending money back home to your family. It's really hard to do that in the traditional finance system, and they're taking like a giant cut every time you're trying to send money back to your mom. Crypto is like, what if you could send that money like instantly and the government's not looking at it, like it's not extractive, you can just do it. Also, maybe you get more money because the asset is going up too. In Nigeria, they have crazy inflation. So if you think that the dollar is suffering from inflation, the naira is so much worse. And it just didn't make sense for people to save their money in the Nigerian currency because if they put it under their mattress, it's just devaluing. So they would rather save in dollars. But then the Nigerian government outlaws dollars because more people saving in dollars further devalues the naira. So then if you're turning to crypto, that like it kills a lot of birds in one stone.
So what you're basically saying, right, is that crypto, it is what you make of it, right? It doesn't maybe inherently have a valence, that like it maybe is a vehicle for whatever the kind of human impulses, foibles, and strengths that we all have, just a way to amplify them, it sounds like. Because those artists in Africa, the charities, they were making money off of crypto, and they were money that they probably in any other system wouldn't have been able to make, and attention that they wouldn't have been able to attract.
These are amazing artists who had never gotten to sell a single work at all. They were just making works out of their backyard or their apartment or whatever, like working for advertising companies, and suddenly the NFT craze hits and they put their work on the blockchain and they're making $500 per image, $1,000 per image, and then they're also forming these communities on Discord. Again, they're collaborating. It's like it's this artistic movement. They think it's going to be like the next. Think about like the Bronx during hip hop. Like they're forming these like vital artistic communities across the world, empowered by this new technology, and it's like really, really beautiful and exciting for a number of months.
I feel like I have to ask you about your take on Sam Bankman-Fried. And I think that his life also sort of shows you the idealism and also the cynicism, right? And do you think that he went into crypto a true believer, a true idealist? Because he came out of the effective altruism stuff. I had friends who like didn't know him, but were also sort of in the early 2010s were like yeah, I'm gonna go work for not Jane Street but some other jump trading or whatever, and because I'm very smart, and then I'm gonna give all my money to buy bed nets in somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so he did come in with some of that, but he also worked at Jane Street, full of like a particular kind of person, let's just say. So do you think he came in as an idealist? Do you think he already had the kind of sort of cynical seeds within him, or do you think there's like a moment where it changed for him?
So Sam Bankman-Fried is my age. He was born in 1992. He amassed a fortune of $18 billion. He was the richest 29-year-old in the world, according to Forbes, for about 5 months, maybe. He built a crypto empire worth $32 billion. And then he lost it all, and he stole $8 billion from customers. He was convicted of fraud, money laundering among other counts, and he's going to jail for 25 years. That's sort of the speed run through SBF. There are a lot of people who, like, just a lot of normies who, like, if you ask them to name one person in crypto, they're just a lot of random, normies would probably say Sam Bankman-Fried. And it's funny because Sam came into the space with no ideological, like, opinion about crypto at all. Like, he was not aligned with crypto. He did not believe in crypto. This is what, like, his early, like, friends and collaborators told me. He was a long skeptic of crypto, but he just saw it as a means to his own ends. So there's a couple layers here, and we're going to unpack them for a second. Okay, so as you said, Sam believes in effective altruism. It's a philosophy that tries to calculate how to best do good for the world. To put sort of a numerical system on how you can best do good for the world. And one of the ways he came to the conclusion that was doing good for the world was just to make a shit ton of money and then to donate it to, like, vetted causes that the EAs believed in. So basically, there are some EAs that are, like, working on, as you said, malarial bed nets in Africa, and they're, like, doing the real work. But then the other EAs were like, actually, like, if you're good at math, you should just go to Wall Street and just make an unbelievable amount of money and then donate most of it away. So Sam is like, all right, well, I'm good at math. I'm not really good at humans. So I'm going to go to Wall Street and make a ton of money at Jane Street. And he does. And he's giving a lot of it away. And then he comes across crypto and he realizes the amount of money that you can make in crypto through his trading practices is, like, orders more that you can make on Wall Street. And that's because the differences between markets, like, the markets are so volatile that if you're a good trader, you can make so much more if you're savvy about it. So basically, he doesn't care about, like, crypto's idealism or that, like, remittances or any of that. He's just like, all right, I'm seeing these, like, trading opportunities, and I'm going to go in and, like, make a crap ton of money off of crypto, and then I'm going to donate it all away.
But instead,
and he was making a lot of money for a long time. His business worked. He had an exchange that basically, you know, you or me, we go on FTX, we buy some crypto, and then, like, we pay a little fee to FTX. It's a money printer if you get enough people to come and buy and trade crypto. The problem was he was taking that money and making insane investments on all sorts of other shady, even shadier parts of the crypto world. That, again, like, the order of magnitude is you could turn $1 into 1,000, or you could lose everything really quickly.
so do you think he was ever a true believer? Do you think he was ever on the idealist optimist side?
I think he was I think he truly believed in effective altruism, in the idea of, like, make as much money as possible, give it to vetted causes. I'm doing good for the world. He thought he was going to be the world's first trillionaire, and he also thought he might have become president. He had a lot. His calculations weren't, like, very good, but basically, yeah, that was his ideal, which is just make as much money as possible and then give as much money as possible away. Now, the important part here is, like, that could have been okay. But I think really fundamental to understanding Sam is this concept of risk neutrality, which really means, like, most of us are risk averse. Really, he was risk embracing. So have you guys seen the movie Uncut Gems? Okay, Uncut Gems. So there's this plot in the movie where Kevin Garnett, the Boston Celtic, gets really obsessed with this opal, and Adam Sandler, who's a gambler, knows that whenever Kevin Garnett has the opal, he's going to play better. So basically, he gives Garnett the opal, and then he goes and he just, like, bets a crap ton on Garnett to do well, because he thinks he has information that the market doesn't. And if you know information that the market doesn't and bet, like, in a certain way, then most of the time you're going to win against the market. And so Sam basically was trying to, if he thought he had an edge, if he thought he knew where the opal was, he was going to bet all of his money, even if he could lose all of it also. And with the idea that if you do that every time and you always have an edge, then maybe you're gonna come out on top even if you lose a bunch. So it's a really like the most extreme high risk, high reward philosophy that you can have. And the problem is like then he was just taking as much money and like placing billion dollar bets on risky things that he thought were gonna pay off that then all went to shit.
So let me ask you this then. You've been sitting in this world for a while now, right? Have your own views on crypto changed? Like, what did you think of it going in, and how has this process sort of changed that?
I'm trying not to tell too much because I still cover crypto, and I want them to think that I'm their friend. I will just say that the number of, like, I guess, promises that I heard during the bull run about how much crypto is going to change the world, or even change any part of minute society, basically none of them have panned out in the way that crypto folks hoped. And I just I came in very idealistic when I heard about, I was like, oh, the blockchain is going to be really good for healthcare. It's going to be really good for like art. It's just a better system than the internet that we have. And I would just get, every single project I would just get disappointed. This is not to say, okay, so crypto people say, they're like, okay, you're harping too much on like what's already happened. Like you need to give us more time. We're the internet in 1992. We're basically like the adoption curve is really slow, and we're the internet in 1992. And just you're gonna eat your words because in 4 years, like there's gonna be this explosion, and we're gonna prove our usefulness. Which is an argument, and it's impossible to refute because they're basically fortune telling. There's so much fortune telling that happens in crypto, and it's packaged onto these like promises of technology. And I'm not going to say that there's no chance that it could have an impact, but the more like euphoric people talk about it, and then seeing a lot of the stuff not come to fruition, the more pessimistic I am. So there are people in the industry who just have a different mindset and are thinking not like in 2-year spans, but in 10-year spans and in like 100-year spans. And I think we need those people in society. It's really valuable.
Yeah, from like an ethnographic point of view, like who is left now in the crypto community, right? Like I think, in your book you show, there are people who are in it who are just degenerate gamblers. There are people who are in it who are genuinely trying to build something. There are people who don't quite believe in it, but also see that everybody else is into it, and so they want to do their startup, and so they put blockchain on it, and then like all the money just comes in. And there are people who are like genuine idealists. I think the part you wrote, you profiled a little bit, the Ethereum guy, Vitalik. I think he genuinely is a utopianist who really believes that this will make the world a better place. But who's left in the crypto world now? And going forward, who's there?
Yeah, so I think if everybody should know one name in crypto, it shouldn't be Sam Bankman-Fried. It should be Vitalik Buterin. He's the founder of Ethereum. Alex Altman edited a profile of him that I did for Time, which was really fun. He's an amazing technologist and philosopher who is just one of the highest level thinkers that I've ever had the pleasure to talk to. Even if a lot of his ideas haven't panned out, he is one of these people that's thinking on like a 10 or 100-year frame. Whereas like I'm just like, it's not ready yet. And he's thinking on so much of a bigger scale. So there are a few, okay, so actually this week, Vitalik writes all of these like really long treatises on philosophy and technology and stuff. And so he published one this week about this idea called plurality and just like his vision for society and how we can use technology to undergird more democratic systems. It was a great piece. But all of the responses on Twitter were just like, why isn't Ethereum going up? Like Ethereum is going down, like why is, like when number go, like do something about, like the machine is broken, like make it go up. Please make it go up. And And he posted, he was like, yeah. And then he posted like a meme of a bull, like an Ethereum bull. And then he noticed that got like triple the engagement on Twitter than his like his philosophy piece did. So I would say there are still the Vitaliks that exist, and they're trying to build more resilient, better systems. And then most of the people are just yelling because they bought some Ethereum or some Bitcoin, or they're in the industry and they really need the number to go up because they put a lot of their money in it, or maybe they believe it wholeheartedly, but then they still want the number to go up. And I would say that contingent is really, it's at the wheel. So my book is sort of like, I think Vitalik was at the wheel for a while, and there were a lot of really like people willing to engage with these really naughty ideas about democracy and all this stuff. And now the people at the wheel are just the money men, and right now they're injecting a crazy amount of money into the election. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but the biggest crypto PACs are putting the same amount, like they have the war chest of Trump's MAGA PAC right now. We're talking over $150 million, and they're spreading it out across both Democrat and Republican races in the Senate and the House, and they're trying to get pro-crypto candidates in every level of government. Even though, like, judging by both this room and polls, crypto is still very unpopular among, like, the average person. Like, most people don't want it. But now you're seeing, like, Kamala Harris aide this week actually gave an interview where he was like, yeah, we want to support the crypto industry. We want to help the industry thrive. Donald Trump gave a 2-hour rally at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville a month ago, and you're seeing all of these people, all these politicians paying lip service. So why is that? I mean, that's something I'm trying to figure out right now. I think most of it has to do with money, the insane amount of money that is coming in from crypto to the political arena this year.
Also, I don't know if you saw, I think it was in the news today, I think Trump intimated that he might be starting his own cryptocurrency.
Some sort of, yeah, it was like yesterday or today, he said, he posted on Truth Social that he's creating a...
What's it called? Something Defiant?
Yeah, the Defiant ones, or I don't know, something like that. It's very unclear. Some sort of crypto platform, or I don't know what it is, but it's very exciting.
Beta.
Yeah, it's in beta. They're working on it. It's going to be it's going to be the best product you've ever seen.
Well, I feel like we should take some questions, maybe.
Yeah.
Do we have the mics? How does this work?
I have a mic here. If you just want to like raise your hand, I'll come off it.
Hi, thank you so much. So you talked a little bit about how the post-capitalist, the idealists, had all these big promises, and that sort of didn't come to fruition. But the sort of ultra-capitalists, the super-capitalists, the venture capitalists, who also have kind of been part of this take the wheel, how have they played into the evolution of crypto? And do you think their promises have also collapsed, or they've made out a little bit better than the, Occupy sort of side of the crypto equation?
A lot of them are doing great for them. They're making a lot of money. Yeah. So, and it goes back to the story of Sam Bankman-Fried. So, why did Sam get so big, and how did he get so much money? He got a lot of money from venture capitalists because he would go into these meetings. He had these giant hair, and he dressed terribly, and people thought he was like the next, like, Steve Jobs, basically. And I guess, I'm not in VC, so I don't want to speak too badly of it, but like you're taking a lot of bets, and you know that a lot of the bets are not going to pay off. But if you think that some guy has 20% chance of being the next Steve Jobs, you're going to put like a decent amount of money into it. So Sam was able to build up his reserves because VCs were like, oh, what the hell? This is growing. Crypto is growing faster than any asset on the S&P 500 during 2022. Bitcoin outperformed it. So if you're like a VC, you're like, all right, this thing it's moving really fast. They're making a lot of promises. This guy, Sam, is like really persuasive. I'm going to give him a ton of money. And they did. And they continue to do so. So now it's like crypto, which was supposed to be this really countercultural, like anti-establishment technology, is basically being run by Andreessen Horowitz and BlackRock and some of the biggest financial institutions. And like, yeah, the Andreessens of the world who are just like the biggest cheerleaders. And yeah, they've made enormous bets, and you know, some of them will pay off and some of them won't, but that's their business, I think.
I think they're idealists or cynics.
Pass? Who's next?
Hi, thank you so much for this talk. I'm going to put two caveats. One, I was 20 minutes late, apologies. Two, I know nothing about crypto, so I came here because I wanted to like know more and have an introduction. I'm really interested in cryptocurrency and like I guess its future, its part in shaping the future in geopolitics and how it will affect one, you know, the U.S. foreign policy, and then also like just the, you know, like just how countries interact with each other in general, because we all know that like, you know, markets and politics, you know, Venn diagrams with a lot of crossover. And I've also heard that there, you know, there are a number of countries that have adopted cryptocurrency like into their normal way of just like running their country in terms of doing business. So from a geopolitical perspective, what changes do you see? Let's start there.
That's such a good question. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think it's like goes to the idea of like the promise and then what's like the divide between the promise and what's actually happening. So yeah, the idea of like there's this decentralized money and you can use it to facilitate like financial streams of capital around the world and in a frictionless way. That like the idea of that is like great. You can and should open the global financial system up for anybody to get involved. I guess another thing that some of my Nigerian sources talked about is like they didn't have access to the stock market, like the US stock market. And crypto offered them a way to buy Apple stock, which is like can be like very empowering. So there was this promise of, yeah, like if you can like free money, then you can free some free states and free society. What we've seen so far is that crypto, some of the biggest boosters of crypto have been the most authoritarian governments. We're talking about El Salvador and Bukele. I mean, my colleague Vera, who's here, can tell you a lot about Bukele and the way he's consolidated power. Vera, actually, do you want to say anything about Bukele's Bitcoin ploy? And
no, I just think you're right, and I think it's interesting how beyond the actual value of it or the actual strategy behind it, it's just a great marketing move. It's a great branding move for a country like El Salvador. They just adopted it as legal tender. They were the first country, and suddenly like this entire community was backing them up and going there and putting a lot of money in it. And so I think you know, the president read it correctly and was probably part of that same wave that you wrote about.
yeah, so there was like Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador that all these American expats would come and post up, where maybe they would move to. They had been moving. Well, they're still moving to Puerto Rico, and that's a whole. The Puerto Rico Bitcoin story is also really big and really sad. But yeah.
But you also see, you know, countries who see it as a threat to their control over their policy and their citizens, right? Like China cracking down on crypto mining and crypto that it can't control.
Exactly. And China has its own digital currency, and they just want to, from what I understand, they like having control of the money supply and monitoring how people are spending their money. So in that case, yeah, like you could see how crypto would be a huge threat to what they're doing. There's surprisingly little crypto regulation across the world because it's so new and people really don't have a handle on it. And then the crypto industry is trying to come in all these places and offer like crypto-friendly regulation, and that gets backlash. So it's kind of this, we're in this holding pattern. But yeah, I would expect crypto to forge all sorts of geopolitical shocks and unexpected shocks in the next decade.
Following the same thread, what about Bahamas? And what's the story with crypto in the Bahamas, where they were among the first to use it or embrace it? And what's the story now?
Also, what is the status of that penthouse?
Yeah.
Is it still that Sam Bankman-Fried lived in?
So Sam Bankman-Fried, he lived in Hong Kong because it was regulatory friendly. He was not able to run FTX in the U.S. because he would have to go through like compliance and audits and stuff like that. So he moved to the Bahamas where there's a friendly climate and he can do what he wants with his business. And he buys a $35 million penthouse where he and 11 of his best friends live, and it's a gorgeous penthouse. 3 of the members of that penthouse subsequently testified against him in trial, and that was fun for me to watch in New York last year. But yeah, so the Bahamas. So Sam had basically come to the Bahamas and put forth this promise that the Bahamas was going to be this new like global financial capital of the world, like that Nassau was going to be like the next Wall Street, basically. And so all these other blockchain companies moved down there to lease space from FTX and build this like crypto utopia in the Caribbean. And then FTX crashed and they all moved out, and the properties were seized in order to sell back to the creditors. And I think there's like a strong and loyal crypto community that still exists there, but it's not a part of the fabric there at all.
I've read a lot of headlines and a lot of news articles that are like don't really paint a pretty picture about crypto. And this is honestly the first time I've heard any modicum of positivity surrounding crypto. And also like just drawing from personal experience, my brother who lives in Romania was unfortunately, a victim of like fraud because he invested and then they took his money and he lost, a good portion. So like, what are some what are some positive like use cases for crypto that are currently existing right now in any space, whether it's financial, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's domestic, anything? Are like what are the positive use cases that exist right now and that's not speculatory?
Is that another good question? It was too good of a question. Are there any crypto boosters in the audience who want to take this one? Yeah, go ahead. There's a mic over here that's coming your way.
I actually work in cryptocurrency regulation, so I'm not a booster in the traditional sense, but I don't like to see the baby thrown out with the bathwater. I personally think just using SBF as an example for how it's like pure evil is not exactly the best faith argument. I'm not saying that's the argument you put in forward at all. I think crypto has a lot of potential for peer-to-peer payments. That's a big aspect of it. It has a lot of potential for decentralized credit facilitation. An extension has the potential for you to be able to monetize some assets that you own and be able to earn an income off of them while still having full control and autonomy over your assets today. I think a big reason why we can't realize a lot of these applications, I'm just starting there. There's a lot of other things that I could go down rabbit holes into. There's really a dearth of regulation. There's no clear standards. There's a lot of bad actors out there. There's a lot of people like SBF who tend to be the bad actor who everybody groups everything on, and then it's so easy to hold the whole space behind because of a really bad person who unfortunately attracts all the books, attracts all the media attention, and attracts all the capital from venture capitalists that are out there who tend to have these short-term motivations at the expense of long-term progress.
Yeah, well, I think the analogy is that crypto crypto is to the financial system what the internet was to like information. And think of all the information gatekeepers that we used to have, and now everybody just has blogs, and sort of it comes with the disinformation and the scams, but it also comes with, you know, people who didn't used to have a voice being able to have a voice. I think you can make the same argument for crypto, but the sort of comedy of it is that like the global financial system was locked down and highly regulated for a reason, which is because there was a time when it wasn't, and everybody got scammed and lost their money, and it sucked. And now the sort of the joke that's going around is, you know, crypto is slowly learning, oh, that's why that guardrail was there. Oh, that's why that guardrail was there, right? But I think I take the point, right? Like it is worth questioning whether some of these guardrails should exist. And I think so far the answer is probably most of them, but maybe not all of them. Would you agree?
Yeah, it was great. Next question. Danielle.
Thank you for your brilliance. My question is, how did you go about reporting this complicated story with often limited access to the subjects, especially the guy in the middle of everything?
Yeah. So the first part is Sam Bankman-Fried. It's a book about Sam and me having never talked to Sam. So you might think that that would be like a big problem, but Sam was like in the media. He was like talking to people every single day, basically. And he was just like writing all of his thoughts just like very clearly. And he was also like lying a lot to reporters. There's another famous Sam Bankman-Fried book that kind of takes Sam at his word, that was actually maybe flawed for talking to Sam too much. But yeah, there was some right around there, but he was just, he was talking so much to so many people, and hours and hours of podcasts that over a decade that I could build sort of a corpus of. And then also talking to his friends and colleagues over the years, most of them off the record, trying to coax these FTXers and Alameda folks to talk to me. A lot of them didn't get in the book, but they sort of informed the portrait of who he was. So yeah, most of the time on the phone, basically.
Did you ever try to get into the same, you know, League of Legends matchmaking room as him? You know, did you? Well,
it was great. He was like on house arrest, playing video games and stuff. Like,
what else would you do
Yeah.
in house arrest?
Yeah, that was a good idea. I should have done that.
Sure.
Alex.
Hi. Thanks for being with us. My question is, what cryptocurrency should I buy?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, that's a joke. Here's my real question. My real question is, when I was in college, they had this drink called Four Loko. Me and my friends loved it.
I don't know
me.
anything about
Not
it.
me.
I'm just gonna
It
head that
was
off.
it was a tall can, and it had like the equivalent of 4 beers and 2 Red Bulls in it. And it got so popular in 6 months that then the federal government banned it. So my question is, if we posit that there is some underlying value in blockchain technology, is all of the hype and the speculation in Anderson, Horowitz, and SBF good for that technology? Is it helping it develop, or is it putting too much scrutiny and it's going to get banned like Four Loko?
Oh my God. Four Loko. Wow. Okay, so my book is called Cryptomania. Manias have existed for centuries. As long as there's been capitalism, there's been manias of these like speculative bubbles being built on top of whatever. So it's just like, yeah, I read a couple books about like the manias over the years and what they have in common and what they have apart. It's true that basically every time a revolutionary technology comes out, there's this giant bubble that forms on top of it, and a lot of people get hurt. So we think about like the dot-com bubble as like the first one. It was a bubble and it burst, but like it helped build a lot of the infrastructure of like being able to access internet across the nation, like the internet infrastructure. So there are a lot of VCs and like the money folks who argue that like the mania is really important to building the tech because that's how you supercharge a new technology. And that is true sometimes. It's also true that there are these bubbles that form on things that go absolutely nowhere and are making this all the same exact promises that the internet did. So that's why I think it's like a logical fallacy to be like, well, the internet took a while and it also burst, but so we're like, there are all sorts of technologies that promised big things and then didn't pan out. Some of them over the years, there was like deep sea diving equipment that like the British industry, like all these people were speculating that if you could build the right swimsuit, you could find all the gold at the bottom of the ocean. That was like, this supposed to be this technological breakthrough that obviously didn't go anywhere. Or like mines in South America that were supposed to, you know, bring all these like resources back to Britain, that those never happened. But at the same time, like, yes, there was a bubble around the railroad, and because there was a bubble, then they got to build the railroad across Britain, but a lot of people lost a lot of money because there was intense mania. So yeah, that's sort of, yeah.
Well, this is why, you know, after the Dutch tulip mania, no one's allowed to have tulips anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, so it happened with tulips. You guys might know this, but yeah, a huge mania that these tulips in Amsterdam or whatever were going to get more and more valuable based on their rarity, which is exactly the same thing as many NFTs operated on. And then the bubble bursts. But, you know, tulips are nice. I think we have time for one more question. John Warner.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you for this wonderful chat and book. So since we're talking about speculation, I wanted to ask you to speculate based on your amazing source work and knowledge of the man, whether you think we've seen the last of Sam or whether the book of Sam ends with the slamming of a jail cell door based on his ambitions, his brilliance, any movement that may still exist to support him later in his life, and if he does have a future, what that future might look like.
So Sam got 25 years. He can shave about 5 off for good behavior. So we're looking at 2044. He's going to be like solidly in the middle of his life, but I'm not going to count it out. You know, maybe that'll be my 6th book or whatever. If we can be optimistic. I think the more interesting question is whether crypto is going to rebound. It already has. There's so many people who still believe in it, and I think that alone, like this story is not over. Even if I don't think crypto, its value to society is, I think, going to be a fraction of what they're promising, but its value on paper could absolutely continue to rise. And that makes me excited and scared. One more, or should we wrap it up? One last question.
Oh, I already asked the question.
Yeah, if anyone, otherwise HV, yeah, go ahead.
This is just a really quick one, but to the question about, manias, NFTs you sort of talked about in the Nigerian space, is that a bubble that has fully burst? Like, people are still buying crypto. Are people buying apes anymore?
No, it's dead. It could return, but right now it's absolutely dead. And do not buy. Just don't do it. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you to Jeff Guo, my amazing moderator.